That cold evening, no one expected a rusty metal door to change a life. What started as just another abandoned storage unit became a story the whole town tried to explain, and few had the courage to tell. Before we begin, subscribe and turn on the bell. Here we show that behind locked doors and forgotten boxes, there are still human hearts. Elena gripped the steering wheel of her old Ford, the engine ticking like a weary heartbeat as she pulled into the storage facility lot. The sun hung low over the jagged rooftops of the industrial park, painting the chain-link fence in bruised oranges and purples. It was late September, and the air carried that crisp edge, mixed with the faint tang of rust and warm asphalt baking under the fading light. Distant traffic hummed on the highway beyond, a constant reminder of lives rushing forward, while hers felt stuck in neutral. She was 38, a single mom with calluses on her hands from waitressing double shifts and a heart still raw from the accident that took her husband 2 years ago. Mark had been the steady one, the mechanic who fixed everything with quiet competence. Now, it was just her and the girls, Sarah, 12, with her mother's stubborn chin, and little Mia, 8, who still asked when Daddy was coming home from his long trip. The bills had piled up like unspoken accusations. Mortgage notices, school fees, the endless drip of car repairs. Elena's savings were a ghost, evaporated on hospital bills and funeral costs. This auction, this gamble on a forgotten storage unit, was her last shot. She'd scraped together $500 from tips and a pawned necklace, whispering prayers she hadn't said since childhood. The facility was a maze of metal corridors, units stacked like forgotten promises under buzzing fluorescent lights that flickered against peeling beige paint. The auctioneer, a burly man with a clipboard and a voice like gravel, had pointed her to Unit 47. Bought blind, folks, no peeking, cash only. She'd raised her hand without thinking, heart pounding as the bids climbed. 200, 350, then silence. It was hers. Now, standing before the corrugated door, dented and streaked with grime, she felt the weight of it all pressing down. Her hands trembled as she fumbled with the new padlock she'd bought at the hardware store. The key scraped in the lock, a metallic groan echoing in the empty corridor. The door resisted at first, warped from years of neglect, then slid up with a shudder that raised dust into the air. Elena coughed, waving it away, and peered inside. Shadows swallowed most of the space, but the beam from her phone's flashlight caught outlines. Shelves sagging under the weight of boxes, shapes draped in tarps, the glint of metal tools scattered like bones. It smelled of oil and stale earth, the kind of scent that clung to garages where dreams were built and broken. She stepped in cautiously, her sneakers scuffing the concrete floor. The unit was 10 by 20, a tomb of someone else's life. Toolboxes lined one wall, their lids battered and latched, wrenches, hammers, saws, rusted but recognizable. Mark would have known what to do with them, could have turned junk into gold at a flea market. Elena's throat tightened at the thought. She'd come here hoping for salvageable stuff, something to flip for rent money. But this felt organized, not the chaos of a hasty abandonment. Rows of power tools on pegboards, coils of wire neatly bundled, even a workbench in the corner with drawers half open, spilling screws like forgotten confetti. Her flashlight swept over a large metal cabinet at the back, its door ajar just enough to tease shadows within. Something about it made her pause, the way the light caught an edge that didn't look like rust, more like fresh welds. She reached out, fingers brushing the cool surface, but pulled back. What if it was nothing? Or worse, what if it was something that could unravel her fragile world? The girls were waiting at home, with Mrs. Hargrove next door, probably heating up canned soup. Elena couldn't afford trouble. Not now. She lingered there in the dimness, the hum of the lights outside sinking with her pulse. The air felt heavier, charged with possibility and peril. Tools could mean a mechanic's hoard, worth a few hundred if cleaned up. But why leave it all? Bankruptcy, death, the stories from the auction lingered in her mind. Units with family photos, heirlooms, or hints of darker secrets. She imagined Sarah's face lighting up at new clothes, Mia's gap-toothed smile over a real dinner. Or the flip side, debt collectors at the door, whispers from neighbors about the desperate widow chasing ghosts. Elena stepped back, the door rattling as she pulled it down. The padlock clicked shut with finality, sealing away the unknown. She walked to her car under the deepening twilight, the facility's shadows stretching long across the lot. Gravel crunched under her tires as she drove away, the unit's contents replaying in her mind like a half-remembered dream. Home was a small ranch house on the edge of town, the kind with faded siding and a porch light that buzzed like a persistent fly. The girls rushed her at the door, Sarah with homework questions, Mia clutching a drawing of a family under a rainbow, 4 stick figures, the 4th blurred at the edges. Elena forced a smile, tucking them into bed with stories of far-off adventures, but sleep evaded her. She sat at the kitchen table, bills fanned out like a losing hand of cards. The electric notice glared red. Final warning. Mark's photo watched from the mantel, his eyes steady, as if urging her on. What if the unit held more than tools? Treasure from a forgotten trade, enough to breathe life into their days, or evidence of something shady? A stash from a side job gone wrong, the kind that drew questions from authorities. She pictured police lights flashing in her driveway, the girls scared, her job gone. Elena's fingers traced the edge of a coffee mug, long cold. The fear coiled tight in her chest, mingled with a flicker of hope. Tomorrow she'd go back. Open it properly in daylight. Face whatever was inside. But as the clock ticked past midnight, the what-ifs multiplied. Tools could be salvation or a trap. And in the quiet house, with only the hum of the fridge for company, Elena wondered if she had the strength to turn the key again. The rusty door had opened a crack into the unknown, and closing her eyes only made the shadows grow. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen blinds in thin golden shafts, but Elena felt none of its warmth. She'd barely slept, the night's what-ifs chasing her like shadows in a rearview mirror. Sarah had left for school with a quick hug, her backpack slung over one shoulder, while Mia dawdled over cereal, milk dribbling down her chin. "Mummy, are we getting new shoes today?" the little one asked, eyes wide with that innocent hope that twisted Elena's gut. She ruffled Mia's hair, promising maybe, and dropped her at the neighbor's before heading out. The Ford sputtered to life, the dashboard clock reading 9:17. The facility opened at 10, but Elena couldn't wait. She needed answers, or at least the illusion of control. The drive took 20 minutes, the outskirts of town blurring into fields of dry grass and scattered warehouses. By the time she arrived, the lot was stirring. A few workers in coveralls hauling carts, the air sharp with dew and the faint bite of diesel from an idling truck. The chain-link gate creaked open, and Elena parked near the entrance, her pulse quickening as she walked the familiar corridor. Unit 47 waited like a silent sentinel, its door still sealed by her padlock. She glanced around. No one nearby, just the distant clang of metal and the low buzz of fluorescence flickering to life overhead. Key in hand, she knelt, the concrete cool against her knees. The lock gave way with a soft click, louder in the morning quiet than it had been the evening before. Elena gripped the door's handle, metal warm from the rising sun, and hauled it up. It rolled smoother this time, no dust cloud to obscure her view. Daylight flooded the space, chasing shadows into corners and revealing the unit in stark relief. She stepped inside, the scent hitting her first. Oil-soaked rags, aged leather, and that underlying mustiness of disuse, like an old garage left to the elements. The tools were everywhere, but not in the haphazard piles she'd half expected. Pegboards lined the walls, hooks holding wrenches in graduated sizes, their chrome dulled by time but meticulously arranged from small to large, as if by someone who prized order above all. On the floor, wooden crates stamped with faded labels, precision instruments and custom bits stood in neat rows, lids nailed shut. A rolling toolbox dominated the center, its drawers labeled in precise handwriting, sockets, pliers, torque gauges. Elena's breath caught. Mark had a set like this once, before the shop folded and life unraveled. She trailed her fingers over a hammer's worn handle, the wood smooth from years of use, and felt a pang of something like kinship. This wasn't junk, this was a craftsman's life, packed away. She moved deeper toward the workbench. Drawers yielded screwdrivers with ergonomic grips, files for sharpening blades, even a set of calipers that gleamed faintly under the light spilling in. But as she pulled open a lower cabinet, her hand stilled. Nestled among coils of extension cords was a peculiar case, about the size of a lunchbox, matte black and unmarked. It didn't match the rest. No rust, no wear, just a seamless latch that begged to be opened. Elena hesitated, the air in the unit suddenly thicker, the distant hum of traffic fading to a murmur. What if it was just more tools? Or something that didn't belong? Before she could decide, footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, heavy, deliberate. Eleanor straightened, heart jumping as a shadow fell across the threshold. "Morning," came a gravelly voice belonging to a man in his late 50s, wiry build under a faded facility polo shirt. He carried a clipboard, his face weathered like old leather, eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Name's Harlan. Maintenance. So you pull up early. Everything all right with your unit?" She nodded too quickly, stepping back from the case as if caught. "Yeah, just checking it out. Bought it at auction yesterday." Harlan leaned against the doorframe, not entering but scanning the contents with a practiced eye. He whistled low, the sound carrying in the confined space. "Tools, huh? Looks like a pro's stash. My brother was a machinist, had setups like this. Clean work, that pegboard, not your average hoarder." Elena forced a smile, but her mind raced. Harlan seemed harmless, the kind of guy who'd chat about weather over coffee, but his gaze lingered on the black case. "You notice anything off?" she asked, voice steadier than she felt. He shrugged, tapping his pen against the clipboard. "Not off, exactly, but organized like that? Someone put thought into it. Could be a retirement dump. Guy packs up his shop, life changes, forgets to come back, or—" He trailed off, eyes narrowing. "Ever hear stories? Units with side gigs. Tools for jobs that pay cash, no questions." The words hung there, stirring the unease she'd buried overnight. Elena glanced at the case again, its latch glinting innocently. "Like what?" Harlan shifted, glancing down the corridor as if checking for ears. "Nothing wild, but I've seen lathes for custom parts, bits that scream off books repairs. Folks get in over their heads, debts, bad deals, leave it all and vanish." He paused, meeting her eyes. "You got kids? This your first auction?" She nodded, surprised by the question. "2 girls, and yeah, desperate times." Harlan's expression softened, lines deepening around his mouth. "Fair enough, but if it's more than tools, don't rush. Document it. Call if you need a hand. I've got a truck for hauling." He handed her a worn business card from his pocket, the edges frayed. "Harlan Reed. Been here 15 years, seen it all come and go." As he walked away, his footsteps fading into the corridor's echo, Elena knelt by the case. Her fingers hovered, then clicked the latch. It opened smoothly, revealing not tools, but a small ledger bound in leather, pages yellowed and filled with dates, figures, payments, jobs, names scribbled in tight script. Tucked inside the cover was a photograph, a man in work overalls, smiling beside a younger version of himself, both holding identical hammers. The resemblance to Mark was uncanny, but the eyes in the photo held a shadow, something unfinished. She closed it quickly, pulse thundering. This wasn't just a horde. It was a trail, leading somewhere personal, maybe painful. The unit's air felt charged now, the tools watching like silent witnesses. Elena stood, pocketing the photo, and began photographing everything with her phone. Shelves, crates, the ledger's first page. Harlan's words echoed, "Don't rush." But as she worked, the fear crept back, mingling with a reluctant curiosity. What jobs had these tools seen? And why had their owner walked away? By noon, sweat beaded on her forehead, the unit's confines growing stuffy under the sun's climb. She'd pried open one crate, drills and chisels, nothing alarming, but the ledger burned in her pocket like a secret. Driving home, the Ford's AC rattling, Elena's mind spun scenarios. A legitimate business, shuttered by illness or loss. Or worse, debts tied to shady fixes, the kind that followed you. Mia's drawing flashed in her thoughts, that blurred fourth figure. She couldn't risk the girls in this. Pulling into the driveway, she saw Mrs. Hargrove waving from next door, Mia skipping beside her with a juice box, normalcy, fragile and dear. But as Elena waved back, the weight settled deeper. The tools promised potential, resale value, maybe a start at her own repair side hustle, honoring Mark's memory, yet the hidden ledger whispered of complications, of truths that could shatter her fragile peace. Tomorrow, she'd return with Harlan's help, dig deeper. For now, she hugged Mia tight, the photo a secret pressed against her chest, and wondered if courage meant opening every door, or knowing when to seal them shut. The afternoon sun slanted through the kitchen window, casting long shadows across the linoleum as Elena unpacked groceries from a paper bag, canned beans, off-brand pasta, the bare essentials that stretched her tips like thin wire. Mia chattered about school, her small hands waving a crayon drawing, but Elena's responses came distant, her mind anchored back at the unit. The photo from the ledger weighed heavy in her pocket, its edges pressing against her thigh like a guilty secret. She pulled it out once the girls were occupied with cartoons in the living room, studying the faces under the harsh kitchen light. The older man, grizzled with a salt and pepper beard, had the same steady gaze as the younger one beside him, father and son maybe, frozen in a moment of pride over those hammers. But the son's eyes, the one who looked eerily like Mark, held a flicker of weariness, as if the tools in his hands were both anchor and chain. She slipped it back, heart thudding. Harlan's card sat on the counter, his number scrawled in faded ink. Desperate times. That's what she'd told him. But reaching out meant pulling someone else into the uncertainty, risking judgment or worse. By evening, as she tucked the girls in, Sarah's room smelling of teenage lotion and homework ink, Mia's of stuffed animals and baby shampoo, Elena lay awake again, the ceiling fan whirring like distant machinery. The ledger's entries replayed in her mind, dates from 5 years back, jobs listed in clipped shorthand, custom fitting, 500, off-site repair, cash, legit work or shadows. She imagined the tools in action, sparks flying in some dimly lit shop, deals struck under fluorescent hum. And the abandonment. Had illness struck, like the cancer that stole Mark? Or something uglier, a hasty flight from debts or threats? Sleep came fitful, broken by dreams of rusted locks and echoing corridors. Dawn broke grey and overcast, the sky pressing low as Elena kissed the girls goodbye and headed out before the school bus rumbled by. The facility lot was busier now, a few bidders from yesterday milling about, but she spotted Harlan near the office, wiping grease from his hands on a rag. He straightened as she approached, his eyes questioning but kind, the lines around them crinkling like weathered map folds. "Mind if I take you up on that offer?" she said, voice low, holding out the card like a truce. Harlan nodded without hesitation, tossing the rag into a toolbox in his truck bed, a battered blue Chevy with dents like badges from years on the job. Lead the way. Got a crowbar if those crates are stubborn. They walked the corridor in companionable quiet, the air cooler today, carrying the damp scent of impending rain mixed with oil and concrete dust. Elena's key rattled in the lock, the door sliding up with a familiar groan. Daylight filtered in, muted, the unit's contents bathed in soft grey. Harlan stepped inside after her, his boots scuffing softly, and let out a low hum of approval. Still neat as a pin. Whoever owned this had discipline, not like the usual messes we clear out. Furniture piled like a landslide, mouldy clothes. He moved to the crates first, running a calloused hand over the wood, checking seams. Eleanor watched, tension coiling in her shoulders, the photo burning a hole in her pocket. "Found something yesterday," she said finally, pulling out the ledger and handing it over. Harlan flipped through the pages, his brow furrowing under the brim of his cap. Jobs log, looks like machine shop work, precision stuff, maybe for autos or prototypes. Numbers add up clean, no red flags jumping out. But cash jobs could be straight, could be under the table. He glanced up, meeting her eyes. "You thinking of selling it all? Tools like these fetch good at auctions, or you could learn the trade. My brother did. Turned a garage into a living after the mill closed." Elena shook her head, gesturing to the rolling toolbox. "I don't know yet. Mark, my husband, he was a mechanic. These feel personal." As she spoke, she knelt by the toolbox, pulling open drawers methodically. Sockets clinked, pliers gleamed dully. Harlan joined her, prying at a stubborn side panel with his crowbar, the metal scraping like a reluctant confession. It gave way, revealing hidden compartments, more bits and extensions, but tucked in one was a small envelope, yellowed and sealed with tape. Her fingers trembled as she slit it open. Inside, faded receipts for parts orders, a bank statement showing deposits that matched the ledger, and a single key. Brass, ornate, not for any standard lock. Attached was a note in the same tight script. "For the safe. Don't trust the banks." Harlan whistled again, softer this time. "Safe? Didn't see one yesterday." They scanned the unit, eyes landing on the metal cabinet at the back, its door still ajar. Eleanor's pulse quickened. She'd avoided it before, the welds too fresh, too deliberate. Together, they approached, the air thickening with the scent of old varnish and latent secrets. Harlan tested the handle, locked tight. That key might fit, but Elena, if there's a safe, could be valuables or documents. "You sure you want to open it?" His voice was steady, an anchor in the rising tide of her doubt. She thought of the girls, of the blurred figure in Mia's drawing, of the life she couldn't let slip away. Calling the police now meant questions, auctions voided, her $500 dust. Pretending ignorance, that closed the door on hope. "We find out," she said, voice firmer than she felt. "But if it's trouble, we stop." The key turned with a click that echoed like a verdict, the door swinging open on hinges that didn't creak. Inside, shelves of files, yellowed blueprints for custom tools, and at the bottom a sturdy safe, knee-high, combination locked, but with a keyhole that matched. Harlan knelt, examining it. Old model. Could hold cash, papers, or nothing. Elena's hand hovered, the weight of decision pressing like the overcast sky outside. Open it, and the unit transformed from salvage to story, someone's unfinished legacy, perhaps a windfall, perhaps a snare. The tools around them seemed to watch, hammers and wrenches, silent sentinels to choices made in shadows. She inserted the key, but paused, glancing at Harlan. "What if it's not ours to take?" He placed a hand on her shoulder, light but reassuring, the gesture of a man who'd seen auctions claim more than metal. "Then we return it right, But first, truth. That's how you honor the ones who left it behind. The safe's mechanism ground softly, the door yielding inch by inch. Inside, nestled among ledgers and a bundle of cash, crisp bills, maybe thousands, was a single tool, a custom-forged wrench, engraved with initials JR, and a date. But hollowed out at one end, like a hidden compartment, it concealed something small, wrapped in oilcloth. Elena's breath caught as she unwrapped it. A locket, silver and tarnished, opening to reveal two tiny photos. The men from the earlier picture, with a woman between them, her smile radiant. Etched inside, for Jenny, always. Tears pricked her eyes, the human thread pulling tight. Not crime, but loss, a family fractured, tools left as relics of a life cut short. Harlan's voice broke the silence. Gentle. Looks like a widow's story, backwards. He must have packed this away after. Something happened. The discovery hung there, reframing the unit from peril to poignant echo. Elena closed the locket, pocketing it carefully. The cash tempted, a lifeline for bills and dreams, but the faces demanded more, tracing the owner, returning what grief had abandoned. As rain began to patter on the metal roof outside, drumming a somber rhythm, she felt the moral crossroads sharpen. Keep the windfall and rebuild quietly, or seek justice for the forgotten, risking it all. Harlan nodded, as if reading her thoughts. Whatever you choose, I'll back you. Seen too many walk away from the hard right. They spent the next hour cataloguing, the unit's shadows softening in the dimming light. Driving home through the downpour, wipers slapping rhythmically, Elena clutched the locket. The tools weren't just metal anymore. They were bridges to someone else's pain, mirroring her own. Tomorrow she'd start searching names from the ledger, JR. Perhaps Harlan's brother could help. For the first time, fear mingled with purpose. A quiet courage blooming in the storm. Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far these stories of courage in forgotten places can travel. The rain had eased to a drizzle by the time Elena pulled into her driveway, the Ford's tires hissing on the wet pavement like a whispered warning. The house lights glowed warm through the curtains, a beacon against the grey afternoon. But inside her chest, the storm lingered. She sat there for a moment, engine idling, the locket heavy in her palm. Its silver surface, cool and etched with faint scratches from years of hiding, felt like a talisman or a tether to a past she hadn't earned. Harlan's truck had rumbled away earlier, his parting words echoing, "Sleep on it, Elena. Truth's a slow burn, but it lights the way." She turned off the ignition, the sudden quiet amplifying the patter on the roof, and stepped out, locking the car with a beep that cut through the dusk. Mia bounded to the door as it opened, her pigtails damp from playing in the yard despite the weather, arms outstretched for a hug. "Mommy, Mrs. Hargrove made cookies, chocolate chip." Elena scooped her up, and burying her face in the soft curls that smelled of rain and childhood innocence. But her smile felt forced, the locket burning against her skin, where she'd tucked it into her bra. Sarah lounged on the couch, scrolling her phone, glancing up with a nod that held the weight of preteen detachment. "Dinner's pizza rolls, hope that's okay." Elena nodded, setting Mia down and heading to the kitchen, where the oven's hum mingled with the scent of frozen dough baking. Normalcy, she thought, but fractured now by the unit's revelations. The cash from the safe, 5,000 in banded 20s, sat hidden in her glove compartment, a forbidden promise. Enough for the electric bill, new tires, maybe even a down payment on tools of her own. But the locket, it demanded more than greed. As the girls ate, chattering about schoolyard dramas and weekend plans that didn't exist, Elena picked at her food, her mind replaying the unit's confines, the safe's door yawning open, Harlan's steady hands cataloguing files, the wrench's hollow end yielding the wrapped bundle like a buried heart. JR, Those initials on the tool, in the ledger's margins. Jenny. The woman's face in the locket, her eyes crinkling with joy beside the two men, spoke of a life interrupted. Widow's story backwards, Harlan had said. Elena knew that ache too well. The empty garage after Mark's accident, tools gathering dust like ghosts. Had J.R. lost his Jenny, packed away his world in grief, only to vanish himself? Or was there blame, a secret the cash concealed? Her fork scraped the plate, drawing Sarah's glance. "You okay, Mom? You look spaced." Eleanor forced a nod, stacking dishes to hide her unease. Just tired. Long day. Bedtime came early, the girls' rooms filling with the soft rhythm of their breathing. But Elena retreated to the kitchen table, spreading out the ledger under the pendant light's yellow glow. Pages rustled like dry leaves, entries blurring in the dimness. Jobs from 2018, a peak in 2020, with notes like emergency fix, double pay, then tapering to sporadic gigs before stopping abruptly in early 2022. Names dotted the margins, clients, suppliers, but one repeated, H. Reed, parts pickup. Harlan? Her pulse quickened as she cross-referenced the envelope's receipts, fingers tracing faded ink. Harlan's brother, the machinist he'd mentioned. Could it connect? She pulled out her phone, the screen's blue light harsh against the shadows, and dialed his number before doubt could stop her. It rang twice before his voice answered, gravelly but alert. "Elena? Everything all right?" She hesitated, the rain tapping the window like impatient fingers. "Couldn't sleep. The ledger. There's a name. H. Reed. Your brother." A pause, heavy as the downpour earlier, then a sigh. "Yeah, Hank. He worked with J.R. back in the day, shared tools, swapped jobs. Hank passed 3 years ago, heart attack, sudden. J.R. was his partner on some side projects, custom builds for local shops. Good man, from what I heard. But after Hank, things got quiet. J.R. stopped coming around." Elena's throat tightened, the pieces shifting like tumblers in a lock. "The locket, Jenny. Do you know her?" Harlan's end crackled, as if he were leaning back in a creaky chair. "Jenny Reed, Hank's wife, my sister-in-law. Cancer took her 4 years back. J.R. helped Hank through it then. I don't know. Rumors he drank heavy after, lost the shop to debts. Maybe packed this unit and started over somewhere. Or didn't." The words landed soft but piercing, reframing the tools from mere salvage to remnants of shared sorrow. Eleanor's eyes stung, the fluorescent hum overhead sinking with her ragged breath. "The cash. It's his, isn't it? And the safe. I can't just keep it." Harlan's tone steadied, a quiet anchor. "No, you can't. Not if it's tied to family. But it's not crime, Elena. It's loss, layered like rust on those wrenches. Tomorrow, we trace J.R. properly, DMV, old shop records. If he's gone, it might escheat to the state, but with the locket, could be heirs. You do right by this, and it honors Mark too. Tools fix things. People mend slower." She thanked him, hanging up as the clock struck 11, the house settling into deeper quiet. But sleep evaded her again. The locket now on the table, open to those faces. Jenny's smile mirrored her own lost joy, the men's gazes pleading for remembrance. Keeping silent meant easy money, a buffer against the world's grind. The girls' braces, Sarah's college dreams whispered in late-night talks. But opening this door fully, it risked exposure, questions from authorities, the auction's fine print about unclaimed property. What if J.R. was alive, searching, only to find his legacy in a stranger's hands? Dawn crept in misty, the sky a washed-out blue, as Elena loaded the girls into the car for school drop-off. Mia's chatter filled the space, but Sarah's silence spoke volumes, her eyes flicking to Elena's drawn face. "You're going back to that place, aren't you? The unit." Elena met her gaze in the rear view, surprised by the insight. Yeah, but it's more than buying stuff now, it's figuring out a story. Sarah nodded, fiddling with her backpack strap. Like Dad's tools? Don't let it break you, Mum. The words hit like a gentle wrench, twisting resolve into action. By mid-morning, she met Harlan at the facility, the lot slick with puddles reflecting the overcast. They entered the unit together. The doors scrape familiar now, the air still thick with oil and memory. Harlan carried a folder from home, old photos, Hank's obituary clipped from the local paper. J.R. full name Jonas Riley, last known at Riley Precision on Elm Street, shuttered 2 years ago. They sifted files from the safe, blueprints unfolding like maps to forgotten blueprints. Engine mods, prosthetic fittings, work that healed as much as it built. One envelope yielded a will, partial and unsigned, leaving tools and savings to trusted kin. No kin named, but Jenny's name scrawled in the margin. As they worked, tension built in small gestures, Elena's hand pausing over a wrench set, Harlan's brow creasing at a faded lease for the unit, dated to Jonas's signature. Paid up through last year, he muttered, then nothing, like he meant to return. The moral weight pressed. Contact police, declare the find, risk losing the tools that could start a repair gig, honoring Mark's legacy, or quietly sell, use the cash for the girls, bury the locket as found treasure. But the faces demanded truth, a quiet justice amid the rust. By afternoon, with crates half emptied and notes compiled, Elena stepped back, the unit's shadows lengthening. We call the station tomorrow. Tell them about Jonas, the will. Harlan nodded, clapping her shoulder. Right choice. Hard, but right. Driving home through clearing skies, sunlight piercing clouds like hesitant hope, Elena felt the shift, from fear's grip to a tentative clarity. The tools weren't salvation alone. They were a bridge, demanding she cross with integrity, for the girls, for Mark, for the Rileys she'd never known. The locket rested light now, a promise of redemption in the unopened chapters ahead. The evening light filtered through the half-drawn blinds, casting striped shadows across the kitchen floor like bars on a cage Elena couldn't quite name. She sat at the table, the ledger spread open before her, its pages a mosaic of ink and regret under the bulb's steady glow. The house was quiet, save for the distant murmur of the girls' voices from the living room. Sarah reading aloud to Mia from a dog-eared book, their laughter a fragile thread pulling against the weight in Elena's chest. The locket lay beside the ledger, its clasp undone. The tiny photos staring up like silent witnesses. Jonas Riley's face, etched with lines of quiet endurance, mirrored the weariness she saw in her own reflection each morning. And Jenny, her smile, soft and unyielding, evoked Mark's last Christmas, when he'd fixed the girl's bike under the tree, grease on his hands and hope in his eyes. Harlan's folder rested nearby, a testament to the morning's digging. Yellowed photos of Hank and Jonas at a long-gone shop picnic, overalls stained with the same oil that scented the unit. The obituary clipped neatly. Hank Reed, beloved brother, husband, machinist, gone too soon. No mention of Jonas, but the connections wove tight, shared jobs, parts runs, a partnership forged in the grind of blue-collar survival. Elena traced a finger over the will's partial script, the paper crinkling softly. To trusted kin. Who? A daughter hidden in the margins? Or just echoes, like the empty garage she'd locked after Mark's funeral, tools untouched until the bank came calling. She tucked the cash deeper into the glove compartment that afternoon, its banded stacks a siren call amid the rain-slicked drive home. $5,000, enough to cover the mortgage stutter, buy Sarah the graphing calculator she needed for algebra, give Mia dance lessons instead of free play at the park. Temptation coiled like the extension cords in the unit, practical and insidious. But the locket's weight pressed moral clarity. This wasn't windfall. It was residue of rupture, a man's final grasp at order before the world tilted. Calling the police tomorrow meant forms, inquiries, perhaps forfeiture. The auction rules were clear, finders keepers for unclaimed goods. But secrets like this, they had teeth, could bite back with liens or lost heirs surfacing like ghosts. Sleep came in fits, the bed creaking under her restless turns. Dreams blending the unit's metallic tang with Mark's voice, urging, "Fix what's broken, Elle." Dawn broke with a hesitant sun, mist rising from the yard like steam from cooling engines. Elena rose early, brewing coffee strong enough to cut the fog in her head, the aroma mingling with the faint dampness seeping through the window seals. The girls stirred as she plated oatmeal, Sarah's hair tousled, Mia rubbing sleep from her eyes. "You smell like that place again," Sarah said, spoon pausing midair, her gaze sharp. Elena met it, the girl's perceptiveness a mirror to her own buried worries. "Yeah, but it's leading somewhere good, I think. Promise." Dropping them at school, the Ford's radio hummed low, news of local layoffs at the auto plant, voices echoing the facility's quiet desperation. Elena arrived at the storage lot just as Harlan pulled up, his truck splashing through a puddle, the engine's rumble a reassuring growl. He stepped out, thermos in hand, his polo shirt fresh but eyes shadowed, as if the night's revelations had kept him up too. "Slept like a rock," he lied with a half-smile, handing her a spare key he'd cut at the office. "Figured we'd need access steady. Station opens at 8. Want to head there first?" The corridor to Unit 47 felt shorter today, the fluorescent buzz overhead syncing with her pulse, the air laced with yesterday's rain and the perpetual undernote of rust. The door slid up smoothly, daylight spilling in to illuminate the half-emptied space, crates pried open, tools laid out on the workbench like surgical instruments awaiting use. The safe yawned empty now, its shelves bare save for a few stray blueprints fluttering in the draft from the open door. Harlan knelt by the rolling toolbox, pulling a drawer to reveal more files, invoice stubs, client lists. "Jonas's shop was on Elm, yeah? Closed after a fire, they said, but no obit. Could be alive, holed up somewhere." Elena's hand steadied as she sifted through the papers. The paper's texture rough against her skin, smelling faintly of aged ink and machine oil. One sheet caught her eye. A lease renewal for the unit, signed J.R., dated 6 months ago, with a forwarding address scribbled, "A motel on the highway's edge," the kind with neon signs, flickering promises of vacancy. "He planned to come back," she murmured, the realization landing like a dropped wrench, clanging through her. Harlan nodded, rubbing his jaw. Or couldn't. Debts from the shop fire, maybe. Hank mentioned Jonas took it hard, poured everything into custom work after Jenny passed. Prosthetics for vets, engine rebuilds for folks down on luck. Honorable stuff, but it don't pay steady. The words reframed the cash again. Not ill-gotten but scraped savings, hidden from banks that had already foreclosed on dreams. Elena's throat tightened, memories flooding, Mark's late nights in the garage, welding brackets for a neighbor's wheelchair ramp, coming home with calluses and quiet pride. She'd boxed his tools last, the act of severance she regretted. Now these, Jonas's, offered a second chance, not just to sell, but to wield. To learn the trade Harlan's brother had mastered. But the motel address burned urgent. What if Jonas waited there, diminished, unaware his life rusting away? They locked up, the padlocks click final, and drove to the station in Harlan's truck, the cab smelling of coffee and worn leather seats. The building squatted on the town's edge, concrete facade scarred by years, fluorescent lights buzzing inside like the facilities. Detective Ruiz, a compact woman with a no-nonsense braid and eyes that missed nothing, took their statement in a cramped office, the air conditioner humming against the morning's building warmth. Elena laid it out. The auction, the discoveries, the locket and cash spread on the desk like evidence. Ruiz flipped through the ledger, her pen tapping rhythmically. Unclaimed property, technically yours, but with the will fragment and personal effects, we'll run checks. Jonas Riley. DMV shows a 21 Chevy registered, last sighted at that motel. Could be vagrant now, or worse. The word hung, stirring Elena's gut. Vagrant, like the shadows she'd glimpsed in the unit's corners, lives reduced to echoes. Ruiz promised follow-up. A welfare check on Jonas, but warned of holds on the cash pending verification. No crime here from what you describe. Just a man who walked away. Happens more than you'd think. As they left, the sun climbing higher, casting harsh shadows across the parking lot, Elena felt the crossroads widen. Return everything, aid Jonas if alive, and walk away empty-handed, her gamble lost. Or claim the tools legally, start small. Repair gigs from home, teaching Sarah the basics, rebuilding on integrity's slow foundation. Harlan drove her back to the facility, the radio silent, the only sound the tires on asphalt, and the occasional sigh from the vents. Ruiz seemed straight, he said finally, pulling into the lot. If Jonas is out there, they'll find him. Meantime, we could move some crates to my garage, clean 'em up, test the power tools. No harm in prepping if it comes to that. Elena nodded, but inside, doubt swirled like dust motes in the unit's beam. The girls' faces flashed, expectant, trusting. Keeping the tools meant risk. What if Jonas surfaced, claimed abandonment as theft, yet letting go entirely? It silenced the echo of Mark's hands on hers, teaching her to tighten a bolt just so. They spent the afternoon in the unit, the air growing stuffy, sweat beading as they catalogued the last crates, drill presses, lathes humming faintly when plugged into Harlan's extension cord. One tool, a custom vise, bore the same initials, J.R., dated post Jenny's passing. Eleanor gripped it, the metal cool and unyielding, revealing the ghost of hands that had shaped it through grief. He made things to hold on, she said softly, Harlan pausing to watch. Like we all do. Rain threatened again, clouds gathering low, the facility's chain-link fence rattling in the breeze. By dusk, as they locked up, Elena's phone buzzed, a text from Ruiz. Motel check negative, vehicle impounded last year, unpaid tickets. Expanding search. The absence amplified the stakes. Jonas a spectre now, his legacy hers to steward or surrender. Driving home alone, the Ford's headlights cutting the twilight, Elena clutched the locket once more. Fear lingered, but purpose sharpened it. Tomorrow, decisions, perhaps a visit to the old shop site. The tools waited, bridges to mending, demanding she choose the path that fixed more than metal. In the quiet hum of the engine, hope flickered, tentative as the first spark from a live wire. The twilight deepened into a velvet hush as Elena navigated the familiar streets home, the Ford's headlights carving tunnels through the gathering dusk. Street lamps flickered on one by one, their sodium glow pooling on the cracked sidewalks like spilled oil, mirroring the slick residue of the day's uncertainties. The locket rested against her chest now, slipped beneath her shirt on a chain Harlan had found among the unit's odds and ends, a simple silver loop that caught the faint warmth of her skin. Its weight was no longer burdensome, but insistent, a pulse echoing her own heartbeat, urging her toward the decisions that loomed like storm clouds on the horizon. She pulled into the driveway, the gravel crunching softly under the tires, and killed the engine. The house stood quiet, porch light already on, courtesy of Sarah's budding responsibility, casting a golden rectangle across the lawn where dew began to settle. Inside, the air smelled of microwave popcorn and the faint citrus of Mia's bath. The girls sprawled on the living room floor with a puzzle half assembled, bright pieces of a seaside scene that seemed worlds away from the unit's metallic confines. Mia looked up first, her face lighting with that unfiltered joy. Mom, we saved you some. It's the salty kind. Eleanor knelt, pulling her into a hug, the child's small frame solid against the ache in her ribs. Sarah glanced over from the couch, book in lap, her expression a mix of curiosity and caution. Any news? From the police lady? Elena nodded, sinking onto the edge of the coffee table, the wood cool under her palms. They're still looking for Mr. Riley. His car's been gone a while, but it might take time. She didn't mention the impound details, the unpaid tickets that painted Jonas as a man adrift, or the way Ruiz's voice had softened at the Locket's description, hinting at too many similar cases, folks vanishing into the margins after loss piled too high. Sarah set her book aside, legs tucked under her. So what happens to the stuff? The tools? The question hung, practical yet probing, stirring Elena's introspection. The girls deserved stability, not shadows from someone else's unraveling life. As bedtime rituals unfolded, teeth brushed to the hum of the bathroom fan, stories read under the covers with Mia's toes wiggling against the sheets, Elena's mind wandered back to the unit. The tools there weren't inert, they hummed with potential, each wrench a key to unlocking her own skills, perhaps turning the garage into a modest workshop. Mark had taught her basics, how to torque a bolt without stripping it, the satisfying click of a socket seating true. With Harlan's guidance, she could learn more, flip repaired items online, build something sustainable. But Jonas's ghost lingered in every engraving, every ledger entry. Keeping it all meant claiming a stranger's labor as her own, a quiet theft masked as survival. Returning, it risked the auction's claim dissolving, her $500 a sunk cost, the cash seized as estate property. Sleep came shallow, the bedroom window framing a sliver of moon that silvered the curtains. Dreams wove through the night. Jonas's hands, calloused like marks, forging the hollow wrench in a forger's roar, only for flames to consume the shop, leaving ash and echoes. She woke before dawn, the clock's red digits glowing 5:47, and slipped downstairs to the kitchen. Coffee brewed with a gurgle, its bitter steam curling like question marks. Harlan's text from late evening sat unread until now. Found an old contact, Jonas's cousin in the next county. Calling her at 8. Meet at unit after? Elena typed back a quick yes, her thumbs hesitant on the screen, then pulled the ledger close. Flipping to the final pages, she traced the last entry. Final payout for HR Memorial Bench, enough to start over. Hank's bench, perhaps at the park near the old shop, a quiet tribute etched in steel. By 7, the girls were up. Breakfast, a hurried affair of toast and juice, the morning light slanting through the blinds in pale bars. Sarah lingered at the door, backpack slung over one shoulder. Be careful, Mom. Don't let it swallow you like Dad's work did. The words landed like a gentle clamp, tightening Elena's resolve. She watched them board the bus, its brakes hissing as it pulled away, then drove to the facility under a sky streaked with hesitant pink. The lot was empty, save for a lone worker hosing down the entrance, water sheeting across the concrete in shimmering waves that carried away night's grime. Harlan arrived minutes later, his truck's door creaking open, thermos in hand and a manila envelope under his arm. His face, shadowed by the bill of his cap, held the lines of a restless night. Cousin Lila says Jonas went off-grid after the fire, blames himself for not insuring the shop right. Jenny's passing hit hard. He built those prosthetics as therapy, you know, fixed limbs for folks who'd lost more than he had. They entered the unit together, the door's roller whispering up, daylight flooding the space to reveal the organized chaos they'd wrought. Tools sorted into bins, blueprints rolled and tied, the safe now a hollow sentinel at the back. The air stirred faintly, carrying the scent of oiled metal and faint rain from overnight. As they worked, Elena wiping down a lathe with a rag, Harlan testing a drill's cord for frays, The conversation turned to the crossroads. Lila wants the personal stuff, the locket photos. Says Jonas had no kids, but Jenny did from before. A niece, maybe. The tools? If he's declared abandoned, auction stands. But the cash? Estate might claim it. Elena paused, the rag twisting in her hands, damp and heavy. I can't take it knowing it's his safety net. What if he shows up broken, and it's gone? Harlan set the drill down, the clink echoing softly. Then you give it back. But the tools, learn them. Hank taught me enough, I can show you. Turn this into something for the girls, not just survival. The morning stretched, tension building in small revelations. A hidden drawer in the workbench, yielding a stack of letters from Jenny, postmarked before her illness. Words of love scrawled in looping script. Hold the tools tight, they hold us together. Elena read one aloud, her voice catching, Harlan nodding in silence. The human thread pulled taut, transforming suspicion into sorrow. By noon, with the unit nearly catalogued, Eleanor's phone buzzed. Ruiz again. Possible sighting. Jonas at a shelter 2 towns over, weak but talking. Wants his kit back. Will coordinate return. Relief flooded her, mingled with the sting of loss, the windfall slipping away, but integrity intact. As they locked up, the sun high and warming the metal door, Elena felt the shift, from grasping at shadows to standing in light. The tools would stay hers, legally, a foundation to build on. Classes at the community college, a sign for Elena's repairs in the garage. Harlan clapped her shoulder, his grip steady. You chose right. That's the real fix. Driving home through the midday haze, asphalt shimmering, Elena touched the locket one last time. Jonas's return promised closure, a quiet justice amid the rust. For her family, the unit had opened not a trap, but a door to mending, tools in hand, heart unburdened, the path ahead clear as a well-oiled gear. If this story already has your heart, hit the like button. It helps the story of Elena reach more people who still believe in second chances. The weeks blurred into a rhythm of forms and follow-ups, the storage facility's corridors becoming less a maze of dread and more a familiar thoroughfare etched with purpose. Eleanor stood before Unit 47, one crisp October morning. The air sharp with fallen leaves and the faint bite of wood smoke from distant burn piles. The door, once a barrier to the unknown, now slid up with ease, revealing shelves stripped bare, the workbench cleared of its silent hoard. Sunlight slanted through the open moor, illuminating dust motes dancing like fleeting memories, the concrete floor scuffed from crates long hauled away. It smelled cleaner now, faint traces of oil lingering, but overtaken by the neutral scent of emptiness, like a garage after the last car rolls out. Jonas Riley had surfaced fully 2 days after the shelter sighting, frail but lucid in a hospital bed across the county line, his frame shrunken under the thin blanket, eyes hollowed by years of wandering. Detective Ruiz had coordinated the handoff with quiet efficiency. The cash returned intact, the locket placed in his trembling palm as Lila, his cousin, sat vigil at his side. He remembered everything, Ruiz had told Elena over the phone, her voice carrying a rare warmth. The tools were his anchor, said he packed the unit intending to reclaim them after finding his feet. Grief and the fire. They broke the man, but not the memory. Jonas's words, relayed through Lila, had been simple. Tell the finder thank you for not letting it rust away forgotten. No claims on the tools. The auction's rules held, unclaimed property hers by right. But the gesture lingered, a thread of compassion woven through the legal knots. Elena had documented it all meticulously. Snapshots on her phone evolving into a binder of inventories, receipts and affidavits. The cash's absence stung at first. The electric bill paid late, scraping by on tips and Harlan's quiet loans of groceries. But integrity settled like ballast, steadying the sway. With the tools in her garage now, the space transformed, Mark's old workbench dusted off, shelves groaning under wrenches and lathes, the air humming with the low whine of a sander as she practiced on scrap metal. Harlan became a fixture, his truck pulling up evenings after his shift, thermos in hand and sleeves rolled to show faded tattoos from his mill days. "Like this. Light pressure, let the bit do the work," he'd say, guiding her hand over a drill press, his voice gravelly but patient. The garage light casting long shadows that softened the edges of her hesitation. The girls adapted with a child's resilience, Mia's drawings now featuring tool-shaped superheroes, Sarah pitching in on weekends, her nimble fingers sorting sockets while quizzing Elena on torque specs. "This could be our thing, Mom, like Dad's, but better." The words, casual over pizza one night, cracked open a door Elena hadn't fully stepped through, rebuilding not just for survival, but legacy. She enrolled in night classes at the community college, the classroom's fluorescent buzz an echo of the facility, learning CAD software and welding basics. The first gig came small, a neighbor's lawnmower blade sharpened for $20, but it snowballed. Word spread through the diner. Locals dropping off bike chains and door hinges, cash trickling in steady as a well-oiled gear. Harlan's role deepened beyond helper. Dinners at her table became routine, his laughter filling the kitchen as Mia perched on his knee, demonstrating how to fix a stuffed bear with imaginary pliers. No rush, no labels, just presence. A quiet anchor mirroring the steadiness Jonas had lost and Elena was reclaiming. One evening, as frost etched the windows, he shared more of Hank's stories over cooling coffee, the ledger's pages worn from their readings. "My brother would have liked you, saw the good in fixing what others discard." Elena met his eyes, the pendant light haloing his weathered face, and felt the knot of solitude loosen, threads of community weaving through the cracks. Months passed, winter yielding to a tentative spring, the facility lot greening at the edges with weeds pushing through chain-link shadows. Elena returned to Unit 47 on a whim one Saturday, the Ford's engine ticking cool in the warming sun. The auctioneer nodded from the office, recognizing her as the tool lady, but she waved it off, key in hand, for one last look. The space echoed hollow now, walls scarred with hook outlines, the safe spot a faint rectangle of deeper dust. She stood there, hand trailing the cool metal doorframe, the distant traffic hum, a soothing underscore to the quiet. The girls waited in the car, Sarah's playlist faint through the open window, songs of new beginnings, voices rising soft. In that empty expanse, Elena reflected on the doors she'd opened, the rusty one that risked everything, the safe's unyielding latch, the locket's clasp revealing faces etched in silver sorrow. Fear had gripped her at the threshold, responsibility a weight that bowed her shoulders. But hope, the stubborn spark, had guided her through. Jonas recovered slowly under Lila's care, letters exchanged now, his shaky script thanking her for stewardship, enclosing a blueprint for a custom brace he'd designed in his clearer days. "Build on it," he'd written. She would, Elena's repair sign swinging above the garage, debts paid. The girl's futures sketched in possibility rather than peril. As she pulled the door down for the final time, the padlock clicking shut with a sound like closure, Harlan's truck appeared at the lot's edge, headlights cutting the dusk. He stepped out, offering a ride home, his hand brushing hers in a gesture as simple as a tightened bolt. The unit stood empty behind them, a monument to risks taken and truths faced, the kind of courage that mends quietly, one turn at a time. Subscribe for more stories of compassion, justice, and redemption. Thank you for watching the case of single mom bought a storage unit full of old tools. One tool hid something she never expected. See you in the next one. In the end, the real treasures weren't in the tools, but in the hands that chose to hold them right.